All righty. Good morning, everybody. It's May 21st. I think it's Wednesday of 2025. I know it's a day ending in Y. That one I've got down. And we are here on the Dev Talk Show. So I'm here with my co-host, Rich Ross. How are you this fine, somewhat gloomy morning? I had to look here in the Mid-Atlantic. I was pretty sure it was gloomy.
It's supposed to be gloomy for the next couple days. I don't know. We might have to get the ARC building going.
It's not even June. So where I come from in California, we would be expecting this kind of weather in June. It's very, very famously known as June gloom, where in the morning you get up and it's overcast and foggy. This isn't being created by fog, but overcast and foggy, and then you drive to work and it burns off, and then it's a gorgeous day.
Nice.
That's why people pay a lot to live there.
Yeah, it's that part of California, right? You drive 30 minutes anywhere and get any of the different seasons, any of the 4 seasons you want to hit.
It is true. That is absolutely true. So here we are, just a few minutes before 8 on the U.S. East Coast time. So wherever you're joining us in the world, the fact that you've managed to figure out our daylight savings time system and know whether we're an hour here or an hour there, I give you all the credit in the world. And we'd love to know where people are watching us from. So if you're comfortable, please do not share. If it's just not something you want to do, you can leave us a comment either live on Twitch or YouTube, or if you're watching in the future, then that means you already know about youtube.com/the Dev Talk Show, because you're watching us recorded, and you can hit the like button. You can hit if you like what we're doing on this episode. And if you want to comment and just let us know what you think, and your opinions are greatly valued. We are not just here to say we know how to do everything. We're actually here to have a conversation with you and learn from our audience that is working every day. They're going to work hard every day, and they may say, hey, you know what? This is something that we do at my workplace that works really well for us, and that could be great to share.
Yeah, definitely. Love to hear from you. And personally, I'm probably blowing, your thought process of how we're going to get to what we're going to be talking about today. But one of the things that I did a demo yesterday with a customer. And one of the things is I was driving home and kind of think about how the demo all went. This show has helped me a lot in being able to do demos. I don't do demos for every conversation I have. A lot of it is whiteboarding, a lot of it is conversation. But I had something I wanted to show. There was this awesome thing that I saw on Monday at Build, and that's it. That's what needs to be in the customer demo, because they need to see that this is where we're heading. And I spent a good portion of yesterday, and fortunately I had a little bit of extra time because I my demo at 1:30 and it ended up being 2:30. So I had that extra time, and at 2:10, here we are 20 minutes before I've got to go on stage, and I got the demo working. So much like we in the last 10 minutes of the show here, there's and there's something to that, right? There's a little bit of confidence, and confidence may not be the right word. Part of it is removing, I think, the fear of anything else, right? It's like, all right, this will work. I can get myself there. I just need to, not panic and stress out and do things that are going to make it longer for me to get to the end. And I think for me, that's what's helped a ton in doing things and being able to get in front of people and not panic. And I did. I had 15 minutes left. All right, I'm going to show you 2 demos, 15 minutes, and we got through it. So it was fun. And I think that's one of the reasons I love doing the show and hanging out with you and talking with you and doing this thing that we're trying to do with the application Project Orbital. I think those are some cool things. So I just wanted to share that. And hopefully that gives you at home the thought process of, a lot of this isn't because we know how to do this. I work for Microsoft. It doesn't mean I know all the tools and the 10 tips and tricks about how it works, or even some of the things that we should be doing with coding as we talk about things today. But we're not afraid to try. And I think that's the important part. And hopefully we give you that. I think as Scott Hanson says, hey, I saw somebody do it. Now I'm excited to go try it.
Yeah. That's definitely true. And at the same time, we are hoping that we provide some value. I think there's a few topics that have hit pretty well that I do think people turned around and went said, hey, I'm going to take that to work. And every once in a while we stumble on something like that. So
cool.
In any case, we are, let's see.
Are you pulling something together? I mean, do you want me to, do you want to,
what is it that, if you have the project up, I have the project up, doesn't matter. Cause I don't quite have it going.
That's interesting. Let me share, because I know there's, and okay. If you want to drive what it is we want to talk about, or let me, I don't have a problem either way. I think we're both starting from the same code base.
Yeah. Yep. And actually, that's actually something that we can address real quick is, and because I'll have to put this in the show notes, is we are trying to think about how folks can follow along. We've had some great feedback of some folks saying, you know what, I kind of want to follow along with what you're doing. And so now the problem is when you watch one of these shows, knowing what that means is right. a little. So I can't just say to you, why don't you get the main branch? Because by the time you watch a later show, that easily could have moved on, right? So I think for now, what we say is we know what commit we're on. I think we could start tagging these commits and probably coming up with a system so that somebody watching the show would know, here's where we started on a show that was released on this date, put it in the show notes, or even absent the show notes. If you became a longtime viewer of the show, you would just know. You would just go, oh, okay, I see when it is. I know exactly which tag to grab. But maybe that's me being a little, positive about it. But I know the commit hash for where we're at right now, I think, is the 7BOB83, which is, like that's gibberish to most people. But if you
hang on, I'm gonna do something I probably should have done last show based on the comments here. So I like having that glass effect inside of my application. So what I'm going to do though for this, and I probably will leave it on this machine turned off, is there is background, and then down here there is image. That's the image
opacity,
transparency overall. Yeah. So let's go ahead and turn that up, and then this way we'll run with it like that. So let's do this. Now you can see it, so it doesn't matter what's behind it. You mentioned the git that, or the commit that we're on. I mean, just doing a git status doesn't give you that, right? It just says, hey, you're up to date with whatever. But for those who may not be aware, there is actually a git command called, and I should just let this do it. So this is git command, git log. And if you do the --1 line, then we don't get all the additional verbose information that's in there, but it gives us an idea of see what the commit history is for the app. And you can kind of see where we are here is that, hey, we're tracking against the main, and that's also origin main and origin head, which by default is the branch that you're working on. And feel free to correct me if I have that wrong.
Well, I mean, it is our default branch.
Yeah, there you go.
But now the moment we make a commit, that branch will point to a different commit. So what I'm tracking here is the 7BOB83, which is kind of lame, right? Like, so anybody could right now say git checkout, throw in that hash, and you would be brought to that point. And then git would helpfully tell you that you're in detached head state, which scares a lot of people. They think that they're suddenly on a zombie show. But what it really all it really means, it is Git's way of telling you that you are currently pointing to and building off of a commit that is neither a branch or tag. That's all it's saying. It's just that it says it's scary. So what I'm thinking is that we start tagging these so that instead somebody can say, oh, this is pre-show 0521. That's probably not exactly how this is going to go, but that's where they started that day. And then post-show is where they ended. And the reason why I say tags and not branches is because it's capturing a point in time and space forever, where branches don't. Well, forever is a loose term. Nothing is forever, right? Because you can move tags. But but the problem with the idea with a branch is that now if you take that branch and you just apply one commit, the branch pointer moves up. That's the point of branches, is move up the branch pointer with every commit. So we have to figure that out, but I think it would be helpful for our viewers.
Okay. Is there a tag we want to assign here for this one?
Yeah.
And I assume it is as easy as get tag, right?
Yeah. I'm trying to decide, do we want an annotated tag? So we could do get tags -a, then space -m with the message.
Okay. I guess that's in quotes. So this would be pre-show.
Yeah. We could say pre-show, and it could be 25:05:21. Right, there you go.
Right. Okay.
And now if you do
dash
that,
is annotate.
Yes.
What's the why annotate?
So annotated tags allow you to supply a message.
Okay. So you can tag without a message.
You can. In fact, those were the original get tags. What we don't have in here is the tag name, which normally would be after the word tag.
Oh, okay. So if I go back to
for example, like the way you name a branch, So I would say like maybe all one after tag. You might just do all one word pre-show, and then maybe 25:05:21. And you don't have to put this in quotes. You just put like pre-show, like 25. This is just like naming a branch, basically.
Okay.
And then
so it's not something that gets reused. Like we couldn't say there's a tag named pre-show and there was a different message for each one of these.
Right. That's right.
Okay.
And so now if you tag it,
gotcha.
Then so go ahead and do that if it lets you. I feel like were you at a command prompt? Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, my bad.
That's okay.
You know what the problem is I'm watching it on YouTube, so I forget that there's a little bit of a delay. I need to come back to the StreamYard view. Okay, so on the StreamYard view, now if you do that git log, just real quick, you should, I believe, if I'm not a liar.
We should probably
done the one-liner log.
Oh, okay.
But actually, there it is. You can see right there. You could have seen it, but it's okay. It doesn't matter. Just do your one-liner log because it's much more condensed. Okay. And you can see now that what Git is telling you is that at 7BOB832, and so Git thinks, this is the thing that I try to stress to people, Git thinks in terms of the commits. So you notice the commits are first class. They're in the leftmost column. And it says at commit 7BOB832, you have several pointers, which I, in my presentations, refer to as sticky notes, and if you're not familiar with what a sticky note is, it's these Post-it, and look, I didn't pay for that, so please, whoever makes Post-its, that's why I call them sticky notes. I don't care what brand of sticky notes you use. I often will do a demonstration where I say all a branch is a sticky note that gets slapped on a commit. And every time you commit on top of it, we pick up the sticky note and move it up and move it up and move it up. That's all Git is doing. And it's this in parentheses. These are the notes that are attached to this commit. So first of all, it's the head, meaning it's what you're working off of. It's main locally. It has a tag called pre-show 25:05:21. It has its origin main, and it's also origins default. And they're just letting you know. So now somebody watching our show, once we push this up to GitHub, can say git clone, and then they can do git checkout, or I think git switch. I'm pretty sure git switch may not work on tags, so don't quote me on that. But git checkout pre-show -25:05:21, and they will be brought right here.
Gotcha. Now, if we check out a new branch for what we're doing to separate it from main, so that we can do the PR back again, is that tag going to flow with us?
So it doesn't matter, because tags are sticky notes attached to commits that don't move when you commit on top of them.
Okay. So as I continue to commit, that tag is going to stay with us.
Right there, which is what we want.
Right. Okay.
And if you do like a git push origin I don't know if you actually have to do the word origin, but if you do git push origin and the tag name, it'll push the tag, or because the tag is currently not up in the GitHub version of the repository. But if you do git push origin and you say dash dash tags, there may be a single dash version of that. I don't remember what it is. Then it says, okay, we're just going to push all the tags. Okay. So quick unintended lesson on tags there. But yeah, so right now you're, and this is the helpful thing about Oh My Posh and other command line like rewriters that are out there. Right now we can see, and you would just be able to see this by doing a git status. Just because you created that tag, you are still quote unquote checked out on main.
Yep.
And the word checkout can be confusing. You can see there's all these pointers the git log is telling you. If you created a branch right now, that doesn't move the sticky note that says main on it. That still is stuck to the same commit. It's just grabbing a pencil or a pen and writing your new branch name and taking that and putting it on the same commit. But when you have it checked out, your bargain with Git is that when you commit, I'm going to take the commit, I'm going to put it on top of where you are currently, and that's the sticky note I will move. I will leave all the rest of them in place.
Right. So that just for really, case in point.
Yeah. Yeah. So right now you've created a testing branch. So if you were to, or you're about to, so now if you do git log, you're going to see it in that list, or your favorite Git GUI tool. Now it's in that list, right? Head is pointing to testing. You have testing checked out. That's the terminology. But main is also pointing to testing. I'm sorry, main is pointing to 7. Let me say that correctly. Main is pointing to 7BOB832.
Yes, this one here.
If we do some work and commit the bargain you've made with Git, and I like to use the term bargain because Git to many people is the devil. So you are saying the testing sticky note is the one I want you to tear off the commit and place on the new commit. Leave everything else where it is.
Right.
Tags are not sticky notes that are easy to get up and move. Maybe you can imagine that you took some masking tape and taped it down. They're not going to move with you on commits. That does not mean they are immutable. You can move a tag at your own free will. When you're on a team, be careful about doing that, because the point of tags to me, the point of tags to you can be whatever you want them to be. But to me, they're a way to mark a time and space, which is different from just marking a space. Like, hey, I just want to mark this code. I want to say this code has meaning to me. I want to say the code at this time had meaning to me. So
right,
that's kind of what we're doing.
That's kind of how we're planning to use this, to have almost like a companion to the show. Hey, this is where we started. This is where we ended, and using the tags to be able to define that set of work.
Right. Yep. All right.
Cool. All right. That's fun. So we got this. We have our branch. We've got our code. It's matched to what is out there in the repo. I did want to bring up this, which is Project Orbital. So we've got our project here, and then we have our view, which are all the tasks that we're working on. And we actually have a, can I bring this in a little bit? Yeah, we can do that. I actually have a task here that we kind of set aside for including some testing capabilities, which is what we want to work on today. And that's why it's kind of sitting in the in progress bin. One of the things I want to show, because I think this is pretty cool from Build, and it's this project, or this task here. This task here is essentially, we needed to do some, we talked about updating the README file, right? And have some additional information, some additional context around that. And if I click on this link, thing here is that there's some work. I created this morning, but what I did was, instead of assigning it to me, I assigned it to Copilot. And in doing that, basically the thing was, hey, go look at our project and be able to, generate the README for me, instead of me having to, to figure it out myself. So what actually was, there's a pull request, where you can see that, hey, this is the content. The update includes content before, content after. There's a pull request in there associated with it. And if we did too, we can actually see, I think it's this one. Or maybe it's, this one here. Let's try that. And actually, well, that's the actual work. There's a one in here. Maybe it's the initial plan. So as it was doing, looks like the finished work. As it's working on it, you're actually able to see the process it's going through and the conversation it's kind of having with itself around, well, what should this include? What should this be in? And it's probably one of these hyperlinks, but it's a brand new feature that I've gotten access to, and I thought it would be kind of cool to just show, hey, this kind of happened in the background this morning while we were go ahead and making this work. So we can look at the file that changed. And I think there's a way here to show this in preview mode. Cool. That doesn't show on the screen. Let's see. This one. Not the view file. I forget where this is. But there's actually a way to show this in preview mode so we can kind of see, essentially what this looks like. And I'm not being able to quickly find it here, but you can see how it went from...
actually, I don't know how to do this. I do it in maybe it's, see that upper right button? If you go a little bit higher, edit and code, is that code button it? No,
that's actually going to send us over to... Yep.
My bad.
It's okay.
I hear you that there. What about, okay, so just close to where you are right now, or in a second ago where it says review in code space, there's two buttons down there that helpfully do not have any text on them. So what's the one to the right there? Nope, it's a diff.
The rich diff. There we go.
Oh, but interesting. Okay, I see.
It's a diff. It's a diff file.
It's using a viewer. Okay, I got it. That's cool. Yeah. Cool. Awesome.
So pretty neat, right? That's
yep.
So one thing to show how to build. So we can, kind of take this, and what I want to do is see if I can do this real quick. And just do this.
Oh, I see. You have a pull request to update the README. Okay.
Yeah.
Or maybe.
And what I want to do is, should be able to do this. And you also include the mermaid.js, the application architecture. Let's see if it does with that. Maybe. Or maybe I might have had to tell it that up front. All right. We're getting a little bit sidetracked, so I'm just going to go ahead and we'll move on from this. We'll kind of leave it as we go. But this is, some of the cool things that's out there. If you want to see some of the other things that are out there and some of the keynotes, I will say do this, aka.ms book of news. And if you hit that, that's everything that came out of build. Go see the keynotes because they're awesome. I know that it takes time to do, run them on double speed. It's okay. You still understand what is happening and it takes half the time. So we're time-saving advice, but a quick rundown of everything that was announced, all of the links to the blogs, all the links to the documentation. This is where you really should start and focus. Day one was awesome. And day one can kind of be summed up in two words, agents and MCP. Because it's kind of everywhere in everything that's being released. And then also day two is more developer focused, especially the first hour of the day two keynote. So go check those out and start. Love to hear what you think. Kind of reach back and let us know in the comments what you think about those. So for that though, I think we're going to go ahead and we can probably get started with our testing bits. So let's bring up Visual Studio Code, or Visual Studio in this case. And I think where we want to start is, well, we need two things, right? We're going to need a project for the testing. So maybe we start there.
I think so. Yeah.
That's not what we wanted.
And the age-old question now is, which test framework do you want to use? I think generally speaking, it's fair to say, just to keep the conversation short, there's basically 3 between MS Test, NUnit, and XUnit.
Yep. I do not have a preference. Probably not. I mean, what are the cool kids using, right? When we see the videos,
even the ASP.NET team, I'm pretty sure is using XUnit. I'm pretty sure. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I didn't go and look before the show.
Same,
but
yeah. So let's do this. Let's search for test. And there's MS Test. There's unit test. That's WinUI stuff. We probably want to not all platforms, all languages, all project types, .NET Aspire. Okay. So we do .NET Aspire, which is what our project is. There is a MS Test, and there is an NUnit test.
Okay. Well,
interesting.
It's possible that I was wrong.
Hey, I'm wrong 90% of the time, so it's okay.
It doesn't matter to me too much, because in the future, I'd like to take a look at some new stuff that's coming out too, including I don't quite fully understand what it means, the new Microsoft testing platform. I don't quite understand that yet, but I know about it, and that's another show, I think.
I think so. I think that's kind of where we want to get to ultimately, but maybe for now. And a project that contains NUnit integration tests of a .NET Aspire host project, which is that redundant because we already have our .NET Aspire host project. Oh no, I see what it's saying. It's the NUnit test to test against the Aspire host. Possibly.
Do we really? I don't know that we want it to be against the Aspire host. I think. Let me see what.
Right. So maybe it's not the .NET we want. Just maybe a Blazor.
Shoot, that's really interesting. I wonder if that project. I don't know what that template produces. Does that template produce a .NET Aspire project that also has? No, it says integration tests. So integrate, I've never tried. I don't know what that does.
Well, let's do this.
I don't know what it does. It's interesting that it says integration tests, which is kind of where I think we're starting.
Yeah.
I'm trying really hard to avoid the semantics battle. We just want to be able to test.
Interesting. So this one now says XUnit. All right, this might be different. It would be nice if we were able to kind of click on this, get to that first window, and then be able to see, well, here's a link to what that project does. Because otherwise I'm just kind of searching through the templates to see where it is.
See, that's interesting. There's definitely blog posts talking about integration tests, which I think is probably what we're looking for to start, because I'm pretty sure the vision here is to say, when we make an API call, that API call is going to react in a certain way, and we want to know if we've broken something.
So this is the project template for that, right? And this is the NUnit one that I pulled out. I don't have a README or anything, so it's just a matter of, well, what's it? I'm guessing this is what it's going to give us. We look at 9.3 and we say there will be a test projects, and then the integration test. We get the kind of like the first class in your application, so we would get created. So we've got, and then it looks like it's got instructions included in there. I think we try it, because it's going to, worst case, it's going to look at it and say, you already have an app host. I'm not going to create it for you. like it would typically do when we bring in or we add Aspire to a project, right? It might do that at worst, but I don't think that's a problem.
Okay.
And hey, it is kind of recent. This was done 3 weeks ago, so it seems that part of that is because of this, and we should talk about this.
Yeah, I know. Aspire bumped up to 9.3 on us, huh? Okay.
I think that was yesterday, maybe Monday at the earliest. So
we'll have to bump up at some point. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So I think that's what we're going to do. Let's keep it. We're going to call it orbital.test. No, so now it should just be test, because I know we're just testing the API right now, but any other future tests would wind up in here to get run alongside the project. So maybe that class winds up being focused on the API, but at least for the project, these are where all of our tests reside.
So not thinking through the DevOps process, I actually was thinking differently that okay. It's just the integration. It's maybe separating the tests out to say like, okay, these are integration tests that maybe only get run at certain times. Although I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, hey, you can always refactor, right?
Yeah, you can always change.
It's just a way of collecting these. And I think you're right. That's how I'm thinking about it, right? We're going to make sure that we're going to point it, when you think about the CI/CD part of it, we're going to essentially point it to CS-proj or CS-proj and say, run the tests that are in here, and I just want to know if something fails. Or confirm they all pass, per se. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Frankie, Francis, sorry. Francis, this is what I get for quickly looking at the comment. I appreciate the comment. This is, I like that you're saying that, because this is kind of, this conversation, this open conversation around how we do this is really important. And I think is why we like doing the show and like hearing from you that is working for you as well. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Sometimes I worry that it's going a little slow, but it sounds like that's actually helpful, because, I look at the clock and say, oh, we're 34 minutes in and we're still on file new project. I'd better chapter this video is the way I look at it. Right. But no, I can see that even the conversation. Okay. So, but yeah, let's it's better, I think, maybe to get some code written and at least see where we're at, because I think when we get to the point of like deployment, go ahead and start it. Don't wait for me while I'm just chatting away. When we get to the point of deployment, I'm interested in thinking through what a pipeline, whether it's GitHub Actions or your favorite DevOps deployment tool, what runs perhaps in that environment. Maybe you really do run the entire battery of tests, integration tests, unit tests, and so on. And maybe as a developer, you might put a pause on the integration tests if they're quote unquote slow. And then you say, look, I'm going to run those. I'm going to run them, but I'm just not going to run them every build or every time I make a change. So what did we choose here? We chose NUnit. Okay.
Right. So we went with the NUnit one because we had for the Aspire test, we're at MS unit or MS test in NUnit. And we'll kind of look into that reason why and comment next time we do a show. But I think what was important is difference between what I've got locally from a framework perspective and what I've got inside of Visual Studio from a tooling perspective, right? When I went ahead and select, I could only select 9.0 or 9.1. So I chose 9.1 as the option. But if we go back and look at the Orbital app host, we're actually on 9.2, right? So I've got to do some updating in the tooling, but we can get past that by basically going into this project here. And if I do this and rebuild, because we haven't built yet, this should be fine.
It should be fine, yeah. Because when you build is when it's going to go update NuGet packages. And in fact, this is if you don't want to use command line or package manager console or whatever, you can add NuGet packages just like this. So which sometimes you see me do, where I'm just like, I'm just going to do it here. So, okay. All right.
Fun. Okay. So now we've got a project. So I'm going to save this and we'll go over to our Solution Explorer, and it gave us an integration test with a bunch of commented out code.
Right. Yeah, sure. I mean,
yeah. You know. I mean, maybe we just take a look at this and kind of run through, right? So we've got our class, we've got a time span. This is for timeout purposes, right? It's got that kind of put there in place. Okay. We've got a project reference, or add a project reference to the target app host project. In this case, it needs to include target app host project. Okay. So let's do this. I already know we have the item over there. So this should give us this. And if we go to here, to Orbital app host project, let's bring it down here. So it's down here with the rest of them. Let's paste that in, which won't be. Wait, that's not right. Say that again. Add a project reference to the.
Oh, well, that's just the example, project.
Right? Oh, it's.
Yeah.
Right, but I was adding it in the wrong place, right? It's got to go in here. So because we're pointing to the app host project, I don't need to tell the app host project where the app host project is.
It's a different item group.
Yeah.
Yeah. You need the whole item group, I think.
Yeah. Agreed. So let's do that, do this. And then while I'm typing and pasting and doing the formatting question or the comment in the chat.
Sorry, I missed it.
That's okay.
Okay, so the question was why choosing NUnit over other testing frameworks. We did spend a few moments agonizing over this, and I think is the reason that because when deciding between NUnit and XUnit, you just happened to find, because there was an NUnit template that was readily available in Visual Studio, which is not, we're not going to defend that as a good reason.
Right.
It was just there was a Visual Studio template for an NUnit test project that they even called it a .NET Aspire unit test project, which we're not 100% sure what the difference is between that and using a different one. I will say that I was kind of interested in using XUnit, and perhaps perhaps it is a simple uplift to go get XUnit templates that do the same thing, and we just didn't do it. There is also the new Microsoft testing platform, and I believe it's called TUnit, that is kind of sitting out there as a new .NET unit testing framework that is built on top of the quote unquote modern Microsoft.testing.platform. Now, like I said a little bit earlier, I am not yet fully up to speed onto what the new Microsoft testing platform is. But I mean, I've read this and I said like, okay, but I haven't done anything with it. And I think that there's a hot open source project out there called TUnit that was one of the first to really implement it. Now, it may be getting implemented in some of these other popular frameworks too. So I don't want to, it's the kind of thing that you got to keep up with every day, right? So as far as trade-off goes, I think that certainly some teams in the world may have adopted NUnit a long time ago and they're really comfortable with it. Some may have adopted MS Test a long time ago and they've still decided to stick with it. But my brain kind of tells me that a lot of times when I watch people work in YouTube videos and so on, they tend to be using like either NUnit or XUnit. A lot of it, I think, is personal choice. But certainly, I'm sure there are features. I don't remember which framework maybe has worked. Maybe they both have. Maybe they all have on allowing more parallelizable execution. I do think that's become a hot topic in frameworks. Is so that basically instead of forcing you to run these serial, one at a time so that they don't interfere with each other, that I think some of these frameworks have ways to run them in parallel and keep the context separate so that you get faster testing of the suite of tests, but they don't run into each other when state matters. So.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Let's see. So we did part 1. Let's move on to part 2. Uncomment the following example test and update projects.myapps to match your app host. So if I do this, where down are we going here? Okay, to there. Do the quick command of Control K, Control U, undoes all of the commenting. So now we're here. So, and what we have here is essentially our first test. It is structured or scaffolded like a common pattern for doing testing, right? With the arrange method and what you're, kind of organizing what it is that you're doing. Act method, which is, all right, what's the action that I'm going to perform? And then based on that action, we assert what the response should be. So it's a common structure for creating a test because it puts things in the right space and helps you do things that are, I would say, part of a test and not make additional assumptions that might give you a false positive or false negative inside of the test, right? If you organize your testing this way, you're going to come out with a result that doesn't have any unexpected tendencies inside of there.
Yeah.
So we
gotta change that, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Oh, it did resolve. Cool. App host. Beautiful. All right. Love it when things resolve. So what do we...
Is our HTTP client... So here's what's interesting here. Our HTTP client, does that have to be... See how it says web front end? It's rolled off the screen. Sorry.
Oh, down the bottom. Yeah.
Yeah, it's here on line 39. Mm-hmm. Is that a string that has to be one of the Aspire strings? Like, do we have to change that to...
Well, let's talk about what we might change it to, right? Because we're not testing the web front end. We're going to test their API, right?
This test is testing the web front end. But you're right.
Good point.
We could change it to the API and still get back at 200. We could still do that. All can happen.
Okay, so let's go back to here to our program file for our app host. And
when we say this is the program CS for the Aspire app host, which is kind of like the orchestrator, not kind of like. And so, and we called our project Orbital API, and we called our web. Okay. Which is fine. It's okay. I mean,
okay.
You can change it. Honestly, I don't know if we've used that terminology somewhere else that we're now going to be sorry, but we'll find out.
Probably. I should spell it right first. So Orbital. Yeah. And it'll probably wind up breaking this project because this probably has... all right. I don't see web in there anywhere. Okay.
Yeah, we may not use it. We may not use it yet.
Which is fine. All right. So we'll save this. Go back to our integration test. We'll pop into here. We'll call this Orbital API. Do the same down here. I did copy paste that. Cool. So now we should, because we're just testing, is this website up and running? This is waiting for a healthy result async. And that should be all we need.
So I actually don't expect that to return a 200 because our API does not respond on line 41. We don't respond to that. But I don't care if it fails.
You should start with the failing test, right?
Yeah, you're right.
The red, green
I mean,
with testing, right?
yeah,
Red green development.
it's okay if it fails because, well, there's a couple reasons why you run it. Let's see what happens here. So let's back up and say what we're doing. This turned into a little bit of an experiment. We are using the .NET NUnit Aspire test project template, which appears to me, what I'm getting out of this now is it's setting up for integration testing by launching the Aspire based app and saying, okay, we've launched the whole app. The same convenience that you get when you run an Aspire app host, and you get all the projects fired up and working together. It looks like what this particular project template will do from an integration test standpoint is say, I'll do the same thing for you, and now you can write tests against it. So that may be very different from unit tests we write later on when we're just examining business logic.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And that's okay. That's okay. This is actually helpful because I don't know that I've seen a whole lot of looking at this .NET Aspire based test project. I mean, I never had. So here we go.
I was kind of shocked it was there that way. I was expecting the classic, NUnit, XUnit project templates, and these were there instead. So, all right. So we probably
I think all you really have to do is go to the test window, I believe.
That's
the Test Explorer. Yeah.
There you go.
And yep, there you go. That should be fine. Or even the next one down. It shouldn't matter because you want to find the Test Explorer. At least I think you do. And maybe I'm not exactly doing what you're doing. And now you should be able to just go and hit that play button wherever, and it should build
the same.
There's run and there's run all. It's fine. You only have one.
In this case, it doesn't matter. Just click a button.
Yeah, so it's okay. And this test is to determine if your web resource root returns an OK status code. I think against a website, that makes a ton of sense. Against the API, I expect it to not be thrilled. And so what we might do is change the name of this test to like get API resource and whatever it is we're testing. Now, it failed, which
is what you thought.
That could be, it's what I thought it would do, but let's see why it failed. If it failed for the reason that I think it did, then we're actually in good shape. And it said expected okay, but got a not found, which I think is my expectation. Like if we ran the project and used the tester.http file, we should see that it's doing the same thing.
I'm going to move this down here. There we go. Cool. Okay. I can pin it and it'll stay there. So if we go back to our Solution Explorer with our API and do this, I'm sorry, not program.
So you just run the app host, I think, right? So this would be just going up and hitting the play button on the app.
Right, but looking through what we have here method-wise, we have
we have API meetings. Yeah, I think I think we can write another test. Oh, I didn't even notice that.
No, same. It works, but
yeah.
Okay.
So it depends on if you want to do this manually or if you just want to keep going with tests. But we'll see.
Yeah.
So what we're doing now is we're just running the app host, which is .NET Aspire's orchestrator project that manages the whole thing. It brings up this awesome dashboard that everybody's in love with. And all you have to do is click, I think you can just click that HTTP localhost 7024, and that's basically the same thing.
Yep.
Or we could go out to the, so can't be found. And it even tells you right there, they got a 404. I'm pretty sure that's what we just did.
Now we could do. So that's exactly what the test ran, because it was just doing slash, an empty slash. So what we could do is fix it. Unless you're thinking we should do something else.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
I don't know if you want to create a second test. Oh, fine. I was going to say, I didn't know that we really needed one of these, but that's okay. That'll work.
I mean, we should typically there's a healthy endpoint at the slash something, right?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, health endpoints will be a fun addition. In fact, actually, I think .NET Aspire already provides them.
In the
Or maybe
service discoveries.
We might have had to add something, or may already have been added, but there may already be a slash health in the project. It might already be there.
Well, it's if it's there, it's not showing up when we hit. Well, I turned off the project, but when we went to if there was a healthy endpoint, then
it's at slash
the
health.
Endpoint is slash healthy. Oh, slash health.
Yeah, okay. Apparently it's at slash health.
So the question is then, do we do this, or do we go back to the test and say you should be looking at slash health?
Well, I think there's a couple things we could do. We could change that unit test to say it's returning a 404 because that is the correct result for a pure slash.
Okay. Good point.
Or we could say, hey, this is a different unit test. A different unit test will now get us to it should just be not found, I think. I think will come up.
Yeah.
Pretty sure. Yeah, there it is.
Not found. There we go.
Yeah. Yep. So I think this will work, and now the test will pass.
Yep.
As long as we didn't save that program CS. Yeah.
We don't. I can do this. So cool. So now if we go back to our test harness.
Yep.
And we rerun.
Okay, so that's good. And that's expected. Nice. Mm-hmm. And so now I think you can go back to the test project. And we could even do something as simple as change the name of the test to reflect that we're not accessing the website. We're going to the API resource route and that it returns not found. So I feel like we could just change that. Because that's what it's actually doing. And that it returns not found status code instead of OK. We could also change the name of this class at some point. We just have one for now.
Yep.
So, but you can change it. It's fine.
Trying to hit the F2 button, but it doesn't seem to want to.
Control R, Control R, maybe.
Oh.
I think F2 is it might be Visual Studio Code, and I think it was the old ReSharper.
Sure, let's do that. Okay.
All right, and now the last thing is you see the little paintbrush thingy. I don't know if it's actually a paintbrush over on the left. If you hit the quick actions, if you pick the drop down there, one of my old friends is going to be in that list.
See, that's interesting because I can see how you see paintbrush, right?
I don't know what it really is.
I would say it's a screwdriver.
Oh, it's a screwdriver. Okay, see, I never zoomed in enough to find out that it's a screwdriver. Yay! Yes. All right. So if you
or the little nail pile, yeah, go ahead.
If you pick the screwdriver, which I also think might be Alt Enter, we want to. Oh no, what happened? Did it change the name of the file for us? Oh, it did. It did. That already happened. Okay, cool. All right. So now, especially since we've only got about 10 minutes left, we probably do want a test for one of our endpoints.
Okay.
And here's the part where our astute viewers will say, oh, okay, time to start. Well, there's going to be a lot of copy and pasted code that may want to be refactored. But for now, I think we just copy and paste it. So
Sure.
I think you can just create a unit test that looks exactly like that one.
Okay.
And you're going to need I think there's an attribute that you need too. Yeah.
The test one. Yeah.
Yeah.
I will start there. Okay. Is that? Oh, it's the pink, not the blue. There we go. All right. Copy that.
Are you no, you're not in the preview Visual Studio. Interesting that all the colors are gorgeous and beautiful. I'll have to see what your theme is. So you still need the test. Unfortunately, the test attribute didn't make it.
Yeah.
So go just drop it in yourself. It's a piece of cake. Mm-hmm. Now this test, I admit that these are going to be very basic to start. Yeah. And I will also say that this is very interesting to me because this is not at all what I thought we were going to be doing. Okay. So if you want to say that getting the API meetings list returns an OK status code, we could probably do that.
Get the API.
The reason I say that while you're working on this, the reason I say that is my knowledge of doing integration testing with ASP.NET MVC/APIs in ASP.NET Core is using the Web Application Factory. However, this particular project is approaching it from the point of view of the orchestrated app is launched and testable as an integration test, where the Web Application Factory creates a stand-in. It basically fires up the API in a way that instead of you actually having to fire it up and make curl requests or other types of requests to it, it fires it up in a way that you can get back an HTTP client for it directly in your unit test and make calls just like any C# developer would. So it's very popular for integration tests because you can stand up the API. Well, you stand it up, but you stand it up in a unit test framework. In a testing framework, and you fire away an HTTP request, which is exactly what we did here, and then you decide what the result is. But what I'm seeing interesting about this project is saying, I will manage all that for you in the .NET Aspire world or way. Right. And you can call by just changing the name of the the service discovery string, you were able to hit the API. We could start writing web-based tests to hit the website. And I'm not sure how that will all integrate, but maybe we can integrate it with some web testing frameworks. That could be really interesting. Yeah. So now we would want to change a little bit further down instead of calling that, we're calling /API/meetings. And we expect this to be, it might be lowercase, but it probably doesn't matter because it's Windows. I think on Linux it probably would, but we are expecting this to return OK.
Now, can we also assert from the response that we get a collection of meetings?
We could, and now this is the age-old question, which I have actually been at. Hopefully this helps you if you're watching. I have been asked this question in interviews. Okay. And I've been asked this question at multiple interviews at multiple jobs.
Right.
When it gets the conversation turned to testing, clearly they wanted to know philosophy, because there are multiple philosophies in testing. And someone asked, what do you think about having multiple asserts in a test? Should you have a whole new test for your other assertion? And I think because I was able to talk about both sides, pros and cons, that they were kind of okay with it. But there will be people who say, oh, it's a whole other test. If one test is telling you the status code is what you expected, and another test is telling you the contents are what you expected, if that's important. It's interesting, right?
Each one of these tests take time to wire up all of the asserts and the acts and those things. And since you already have that payload anyway, I would say go ahead and interrogate it and save it on the time of the testing to complete, which is oftentimes on larger projects can be quite long, and important to look at places to save that.
Yeah, it could be. I'm not going to put a stake in the ground, because I think anybody who commented and said, I still like it my way, I don't think that's wrong.
Sure. I don't think it's wrong either.
Right. That's the thing.
But I have rationale why I feel one way or the other.
Yeah. And you can see that there's a lot of copied code here. So it leads you to a place of, we could certainly refactor this at least to the arrange kind of maybe being similar. Perhaps even act being very similar. If all you're doing is testing status codes, we can turn that into practically, we can probably even turn this into something where, so I know that XUnit has this, I'm positive NUnit does too, where instead of writing test after test after test, you would just change the data entry.
Okay.
And then the test would now be test the API status code returns, and you would just provide, the bits that change, but you run the test again and again and again. Those are all things we can look at doing, but this should work. You should be able to now see that that the API meetings returns. We now, and since we have 5 minutes left, and while this is running, I will tell you that I believe, tell me what you think, and tell me what you think in the audience too. I think we have now stepped into a much larger world, and we could replace the word world with minefield, which is that we brought up the app, including the integration to Cosmos DB, to test it.
Right.
Is there another? It's the whole thing, which, hold on though, there's value in that. And maybe there's value in the DevOps world for that. The whole thing works.
Yes.
From a, and I don't want to use the word unit test, but from a closer to the developer form of integration test, is there a set of integration tests that use either an in-memory version of the repository that says, I don't care about Azure Cosmos DB. What I care about is that this API returns, like you said, returns a list of values. This API returns no values when you're creating. This API returns one value if you do a meeting by ID. Now, building that in-memory repository, you could do it a couple ways. You could either just mock it, which I think some people would love to do. Other people would say, I'm not really a big fan of mocks. I want to take an in-memory version of this. And this is something our app is not ready for. We do not have a data or repository pattern on our Azure Cosmos DB access yet.
Right.
We know it's in our list.
Yes. And in talking it through, we thought, well, let's do the testing first. So, because we have an app that works, let's do the test part first, and then see if we break it as we move into the repository pattern. So we do think about this show.
There was an intention that even though you might be sitting in the audience right now cringing, saying, oh my gosh, it's like going through the whole world, all the turtles had to be layered in order to do this. It's like, okay, but hold on. Now we have unit tests, or I don't want to use that word unit test. Now we have a testing suite that we can go back and use so that when we change to a repository pattern, we run the suite and the suite's like, it's all good.
Yeah.
And so we ran this and our 2 tests pass. And so theoretically, I could see us now doing a couple things. There's only a few minutes left. Is you could keep pasting this method over and over, or we could look up how in NUnit you would, I don't know if we could do that in 3 minutes, maybe not. We could look up in NUnit how to change this test to a data-driven test, which is a feature that MS Test has, and it's a feature that XUnit has. And I don't mean to pick on XUnit. I just happen to have done a little bit of XUnit testing where the tests are usually have the attribute fact, and you might even just ask Copilot, how do I do XUnit's theory style testing? Where what you do is you supply the data, and you actually do it in MS Test. You do it in attributes. So you would have an attribute per test. So when you find that you have tests where the only thing that changes are some very basic inputs, you can use this technique to say, like, I'm going to write one test, almost like a generic test in a way, And then I'm just going to change the inputs, but I'm going to tell the test, this input is this output. This input is this output. This input is this out. So we would have a list of API endpoints and expected status codes. I think that we could build an in-memory repository. I also think we could be even a little bit more. Here's another option. Why? What did it do? Did it tell you how to do it? Because I zoomed out a little bit. So I'm zooming back in, and it says update assertions and test setup to use input parameters. So it kind of thinks to know what to do, right? The test case attribute.
Yeah.
Okay. So does it show us how to do it or not really? I guess it doesn't really.
Well, it does, because it's got this here, and we can go, and it will actually, let's pin this off to the side. Oh, it's actually going through our code and dropping in that information. So let's move this out of the way for a second.
Oh, I see.
So it's getting rid of this and going to this. In fact, it
seems to have even figured it out. Yeah. Okay.
So we can, get rid of.
They're saying you don't need the comments anymore.
Agreed.
I don't, and they're just trying to get rid of the comment. That's all they're doing there. Okay. That yes, now it's a route. Okay.
Okay.
And then they changed. Interesting.
The old method.
Oh.
Or they got rid of all of this.
Yeah, I think it didn't get that right. So we don't really want.
So let's reject that.
Well, maybe reject it. I don't think this is going to be that hard. I think what it did is, did it replace it all? No, it didn't. It is going to blow it away, isn't it? Oh, no, it's getting, you know what it's doing? It's getting rid of the redundant method.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So that makes sense, right? So we scroll down, make sure. Okay.
Right.
Is that everything? That is everything. And if this one, too far. Okay, that looks good. Let's just go ahead and accept it. Yep.
Okay, so, in fact, look, it kind of did exactly what we wanted. Is it said, hey, see how for now it passes into the method? If you've never done this before, if you've never done this before in any test framework, this is the same as XUnit's fact and theory and MS test. I think they call it, gosh, the MS test attribute, I think it's like data or something. I'm sorry that I don't have it at my fingertips. So now what we're telling NUnit is run this twice.
Right.
And they even changed the name of the method to be more generic, saying the getting an API endpoint should return the expected status code. And given this route, you are expecting this status code. So you can run it to double check, and then you can just start throwing in test cases. So this is one way.
As long as it's only checking for status code.
Yep. That's
and that's kind of, that's all it's doing. Okay.
So that's an argument. No, go ahead and run it, because by the time I finish talking, that's an argument for keeping the tests. So we talked a little bit earlier about, should we do multiple asserts? One reason why you might not is to take advantage of capability like this. It becomes very easy to add new test cases. However, another way to look at it is somebody saying, I still think there's a lot of redundancy in the code. I'm going to refactor this out. You might end up having, I see all kinds of ways people do it. They'll do it through inheritance. They'll build like setup services that do things. But now we have both unit test passing, and you could very quickly, while we sit here, copy line 11, and you could test API/meetings with an ID. And yes, there's some danger to this, because we have to know an ID that our current, we have to do one of two things: either know an ID that our current Cosmos DB has, or put something we know it doesn't have and set it to not found, just for purposes of showing our audience that it's easy to add test cases. Again, we're running into the issues of what isn't good about our current approach, which is actually talking to a live database. If state is not set up the way you expect it, then this doesn't help you as much. There is I don't want to say this is new, but I would say it's in the last 2 to 3 years, thanks to containers. I am seeing influencers on YouTube, people who make YouTube videos on .NET, and they're even using a NuGet project that I think is called Test Containers. I'm pretty sure I'm right about that. Everybody should go check it out, and they should star it. It's designed to do what Aspire is doing for us, but it basically on your unit test or your integration test fires up the containers, fires up in a known state. You run your test on it, it blows them away. And that's a fantastic way for you to say, I've got a container with a data store in the state that I expect. This meeting exists, that meeting doesn't. Deleting this meeting does a thing. Trying to delete that meeting does a 404. From the purposes of an integration test, I think that's totally fine.
Yeah.
What I think we will come back to is a repository pattern that lets us refactor to perhaps an in-memory user store, which there is value in. But I also like the idea of unit tests where the in-memory, where the repository is for testing only. And you basically tell the repository, hey, I want you to return not found.
Right.
What are we actually testing now? We're testing that the API responds gracefully to the unexpected, to the happy path situations, like here's the list. Okay. That API wasn't found, not found. But furthermore, we could start testing the unhappy paths. What happens when Cosmos DB's connection is bad, wrong? Somebody put the string in wrong. How does the API respond so that it doesn't turn around and just throw that exception at your integrators who should have no idea what your backend is?
Right.
So I see that as yet another kind of repository, one that is programmable. This is what people would just use mock for. They might say, like, I don't need to do that. I'll just use mock. Right. And you basically tell the repository, listen, I'm going to call you and you're going to blow up. You're going to blow up the way Cosmos DB does so that we can test how our API reacts to that.
Right. Which is important in the disconnected distributed world of cloud.
Yeah.
Your APIs need to be able to handle those kind of things.
Every network call is a potential for failure. Mm-hmm. And that is what you'll all want to read, or watch, or find anything you can is on the fallacies of distributed computing. Number one, the network is reliable. And so it's not. And according to a very famous, I don't know if it was a paper, but it's Sun Microsystems. I'm never going to get the gentleman's name right, but it says here, I'm reading out of Wikipedia, L. Peter Deutsch, and I want to make sure he's credit. I mean, this is a classic list of maybe it's a paper, but it's an absolutely classic. The network is reliable is number one. And I keep that in mind every day, that every call that we make can blow up with, I don't know, it just timed out. They're just not there.
Yeah.
And we have a tendency in our software to just throw those up the chain, and then eventually they land in the user's lap. Now, what's the danger of that? Well, there's some harmless things like exposing the guts to your integrators, but there's the not so harmless things of letting an attacker go, oh, they're using Azure Cosmos DB. I wonder if I can trick them into running my query. Granted, you've got to defend against those things anyway, but even giving out that information allows the attacker to zoom in. Oh, yeah, I know what they're using. I get to zoom in instead of trying a billion things, you know? So, and I tend to focus on attacks, but it's really just good customer service. Does your API return an error with a trace ID? Are you logging out to a customer service type system so that they can call in and say, we don't know what's wrong, but here's our trace ID. And we go, oh, well, you know what? That's an internal problem. Hey, thanks for bringing it to our attention. There's a ticket open for it right now. Or, no, that was a bad request, and here's how we help you. All of a sudden, your little user group app becomes this big thing. But I think that's kind of what we want to use the app for, too.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, I agree. Totally.
All right.
One of the main reasons why we're doing it. So, yeah. So we got our first test.
Yep.
First 3 tests, because we have 3 different test cases in there.
Yep, that's right. That's right. And so I think that worked out well. If you're
Yep.
following along, bear with us as we kind of get our GitHub repo into the state we talked about at the beginning of the show, where we plan to have tags before and after. We want you to be able to do so. It was a great suggestion, so we're working on that. We're going to keep running down our task list. We're going to try to run this like a project. We'll just see how it goes. You know, we only usually get about an hour and a half in the mornings. But thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. We did have a couple people join us late. And thank you so much. We really appreciate it. It's cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So thanks for the great questions. Francis had some awesome questions for us today. And I do have to get out of here. So I think we'll run pretty quickly. If you have any further questions or comments, anything about what we said today, don't hesitate to leave it in the comments below here on YouTube. And other than that, Rich, thank you very much for driving that. That was awesome. We got to use a little bit of GitHub Copilot chat to help us out as well. So for Rich, I am Chris, and we will see you all next time on the Dev Talk Show.